We've tested two extremely good value bikes for under £400 from Decathlon on this channel. But what happens if you spend double that? We've been on the website and found a Triban RC520 for under £800. Let's go and see what the deal is.
Is this what we're getting?
Sadly, no. Sweet. For £800, this is an impressive spec. Shimano 105 levers, Shimano 105 gears, so we have chain, front mech, rear mech. The brake calipers are not made by Shimano, but we're going to go over them later because there's something quite special about them. First things first, and what we usually do when we review a bike, let's get it weighed. Oh, it feels heavy. It doesn't feel any lighter than the cheap one. Bike weight without pedals, to be fair to the other bikes that we weighed in previous episodes, is 10.53 kilos. So that's about 100 grams lighter than the 350 pound rim brake bike that we first tested, and about half a kilo lighter than the disc brake version of that cheap bike, which is about 400 pounds. So this is the lightest, and you'd hope it would be for the money. For complete transparency, Decathlon have given this bike for purpose of review. However, this is not a sponsored video, they have no control, they're not paying us, and we're allowed to say anything we want about the bike. We're also not going to be keeping this bike. Stay tuned to the end of this video to see where it's going to go. Shifts like a dream. So, aluminium frame, carbon fork, slightly different frame to the two bikes that we reviewed before. It's still very relaxed. Your handlebars are higher at the front than a race bike's. There's mounts on the frame so you can fit mudguards and panniers to it, so rack mounts. My favorite bit, thank heavens, this Triban has a replaceable mech hanger. Amazing! So, if you do crash this bike, unlike the other ones, and you fall on this side and your rear mech bends inwards, it's not going to destroy your frame. You're just going to bend this little piece and then you'll be able to buy a replacement piece to fit on. This is the hanger where the rear mech bolts into. A massive downside on the cheaper bikes, and I'm glad it's a feature on this significantly more expensive one. In my opinion, this is the best looking entry-level bike we've had on this channel. It has drop seat stays. The idea behind these is that it makes the bike slightly more comfortable, so this tube can flex. Instead of these seat stays coming up all the way to here, they drop down slightly, so it means this tube can flex, but you still have all the stiffness down here. That's the idea. Does it work? It feels pretty harsh to me, still. And that's just a characteristic of an alloy frame. However, it does look cool, and it looks like a lot of modern bikes, so I guess if you're into that, it's a good thing. It's also a lot more aggressive than the other bike. It's not an out-and-out race bike, don't get me wrong. However, it is a lot lower and slightly longer than the cheaper entry-level bikes that we've been testing, and you will notice that. So if you need an upright position, perhaps this is not the bike for you. This is even when it's set up with a couple of spaces underneath. What's that, like maybe 2.5 centimeters underneath the stem? Just bear that in mind. This is aimed at someone who's already been riding a while rather than buying their first bike. Same Triban saddle as we've seen before. I've said in the past, I'm not a fan that it doesn't have a cutout in the middle. There's a bit of an indent, but I would rather see a complete pressure relief channel because most people get on with those better. However, saddle's a personal preference, so you may get on with this absolutely fine. Handlebars and stem, also made by Triban. Decathlon have historically been quite careful in their choice of handlebar size and stem length based on the size of the frame. So this is a size small, you get an 80mm stem, which is pretty short, and 40 centimeter bars. 40 centimeter bars. As usual, they've left a series of spaces underneath the stem so you can adjust the front end if you want to go lower. A gripe I had with the cheaper bike that I reviewed was the weird little clip thing which fitted the brake cable, or like held the brake cable next to the fork. On this bike, they've used a cable tie instead, which I'm not sure if it's intentional or the clip pinged off, because that was the problem I was having. I like that better. Now moving on to group set. Attached to your handlebars, you have 105 shifters. These are really comfortable, tried and tested. 105 is a premium component range, like it's their performance stuff, Shimano's performance stuff. 11 speed, you have all of the controls easily available at your hands. It's a really reliable and durable performance option. Attached to these shifters with cables are TRP high roads.
It's got hydraulic calipers that are mechanically controlled, which means that you get to have really slender shifters which feel amazing in your hands, and then braking power which is very good, straight out of the box.
It's really good, isn't it?
The caliper is hydraulically powered, so the braking power is very, very powerful. They're obviously not as good as a full hydraulic system, but it's still very good. Like, it's better than a rim brake. Sorry, but it is. And it's obviously better than mechanical disc. They're great. They're fantastic brakes. It's very likely that this is one of the reasons they're able to get this bike at the price point they do, is making little cost savings, whether it's significant or not, on having mechanical shifters. Even from a maintenance point of view, it makes it a lot easier.
I'd like to point out quickly, these are incredibly easy to adjust. I wasn't sure. I've only used the hydraulic calipers from AliExpress before, and I've now used these ones. I was wondering if they adjust the same. They're actually easier. There's a massive adjustment thing on the side and you can just loosen it off. While they were making a bit of noise when we first put the wheel back in after changing tyres, I managed to adjust that in 2 seconds. 105 front mech, 105 rear mech, blank unbranded crank, micro shift cassette, and KMC X11 chain. So there's a bit of a mishmash of parts here. However, in the stand, they're all working great together. Gear ratios are not as good as Jimmy would want them. You have a 50-34 on the front, and the cassette is 11-32. This derailleur does go up to a 34, so if you wanted slightly easier gears, like a 1-to-1 ratio, you could invest in a cassette with a slightly biggest cog, and you would make it up the hills a little bit easier. However, I think they've gone for a pretty safe range here.
The cassette on this bike is 11 speed, which is quite rare for this price point. Well, ultimately what it means is you're much more likely to find a gear that fits the cadence that you want to be riding at. You know, the gaps between the gears are smaller, so you're probably going to find something more comfortable. I am disappointed, however, that this bike doesn't have a 1-to-1 gear ratio, like also nothing else in this price point, apart from one of the Decathlon bikes, which I'm very happy with. Putting an 1134 cassette on the back, for me, is a definite, but you know, if you find you don't need it, you don't need it.
I think it's fair enough that they've changed a couple of parts here. They will have saved a decent amount of cost instead of going with the Shimano parts. There's absolutely nothing wrong. The KMC chains, they're excellent. The cassette, as long as it doesn't wear out really quickly, I'm happy with that choice too. And the bike has a Holotech style bottom bracket as well, so saving a bit of weight there and allowing you to use this crank. Or fit any 24mm spindle crank to it as well, if you wanted to upgrade. Moving on to wheels, these are tubeless ready. The sticker has come off really easily off this rear one. Obviously they're not set up tubeless when you take it from the shop, but if you wanted to set them up tubeless, you'd need tubeless valves, tubeless tape and sealant, and then a way to inflate it, and then potentially your punches could seal as they happen. The tyres that they've installed on here are Triban as well. 28mm.
I thought the tyres were going to be a bit rubbish. I thought we were going to be slipping out on some of the climbs because they're a bit wet today, but nice grip on them. Obviously I can't comment on the durability.
I'm just going to quickly put a 40mm gravel tyre on this bike to see if it fits. It should, because they say 40mm is the maximum. If that is the case, that's very good because it means you can use this bike for commuting and have more comfort. You can go off-road, you can set it up tubeless and it'll work a lot better because of lower pressures of a higher volume tyre. Bigger tyre clearance is a fantastic thing in my book. I don't think you could go much bigger, but 40mm fits in fine. When I was putting them on, I was like, oh, I could try a 50. But a 50 would not fit in there. Based on this, you could use this bike as a fully fledged gravel bike. You could put a 27.2 dropper seat post in as well. For reference, this is a Hutchinson Touareg 40mm, for people who are wondering.
It's an 800 quid bike, which is obviously a lot of money, but it's easily in the same category as bikes that are like 2,000, 2,500 pounds by the big names. It's brilliant. I think my only gripe with the fact that I'm comparing it to a 2,000 pound bike is that it's quick release rather than through axle. I think in the future, 5 years, 10 years down the line, quick release disc wheels are going to become harder and harder to get hold of. But right now, that still wouldn't stop me buying this bike over a 2,000 pound equivalent.
We hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. And now we're going to head over, as promised, to give this bike away. How's it going? This is Jack from Recycle Bike. He's going to tell us a little bit about what they do here.
So we've got a few different schemes here, but one of the things that we're looking for is always bikes for young people, especially on low incomes. We've got a young volunteer scheme where we teach them mechanical skills and bikes like this that we can help them refurbish, and then once they've done a few sessions we can help give away. Is there anything specific you want these bikes to go to? Any specific projects?
No, whatever works best for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.